Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the American Discovery Tour podcast. This week, we're going to be talking to you about our time in Vermont. Excited to talk about Vermont, my man?
Oh, man, there's some fun stuff that happened in Vermont.
Absolutely crazy time in Vermont. There were injuries. We'll get to that and explain that. We almost died. Highlights of this episode, driving 97 miles an hour down back roads in convertible BMW, looking at the stars underneath this amazing sky while we're just rolling through this area. It was great. Trivia.
Trivia, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Trivia. Going to an overdose prevention event as well. And a whole bunch of other stuff. Amazing scenery, falling as we're climbing mountains. Like it was pretty wild. So we'll get started. When we talk about Vermont, let's start with the first thing that happened to us. We pulled in.
The dinner on the way in, you're talking about, right?
Yeah, we tried to stop somewhere for dinner, and when we got there, we're right at the beginning of Vermont. We just pulled in just outside of Burlington, which is an amazing, thriving city in Vermont, and we stop at this tavern to have some food. Sit down next to couple guys who looked a little rough.
Fellows, yeah.
Yep, interesting guys, looked a little rough, but our thought was, well, let's get to know them, let's get to meet the people of Vermont. And so we dove in, we started eating, and then what was the first thing they said to you?
So we were talking, and something, I forget exactly how we got to this point, but me and you were talking, and I had wanted to check how many steps that I had walked, like in the previous state, which I ended up doing like a crazy amount. It was something, I don't remember, but in my health app, I have the ability to like check my heart rate. So I was like, oh, I'll just see what I'm at. And I checked my heart rate, and it was like 51 beats a minute or something like that. And before this happens, I hear this guy talking to his friend and about wanting to fight some guy for money that he owed him, and we're like, oh, this is an interesting conversation that's going on, like right next to me. And he must have been looking over, and he's like, what are you checking your heart rate for? And I was like, oh, just run low. And I was like, oh, 51 beats per minute. And he's like, I forget what he said. He said something, I think trying to be intimidating, and he's like, the next thing was like, oh, bet your heart rate's going faster now. And it's like,
yeah, this guy he looked like somebody, if you've ever been in a bar, who's maybe looking for a fight or looking for tension. It seemed to be that guy. Mm-hmm. And he looked right at it. He's like, bet your heart beats faster now or something like that. And honestly, I wouldn't have been surprised if it was, because this guy was a big guy and he could absolutely take us out if he wanted to.
I don't know who'd have won, but I just know I wouldn't have felt too good.
yeah, he'd have won. And he was with his buddy, and his friend came over and talked to me and was asking us what we were doing, asking us if we were college students, because it was right around the time that college students were coming to the University of Vermont. We're like, no, we're actually just traveling, meeting a bunch of people, told them a little bit about the tour, and this guy says, oh, that's pretty cool. And he's like, don't mind my buddy over here. He's pretty aggressive. He's just one of those aggressive kind of guys. And he comes up real close to me, and he's just like talking to me. He's like, actually, you probably want to ask me some questions. You want to get to learn about me. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to learn about you. Tell me about yourself. And he's like, well, I run this business. I think it was a construction-related business or something. I think he did some construction work. And then he started showing me pictures of his car. And he was like showing me this really cool car. I think it was a Porsche or something. And he was showing me pictures of his car, and he was talking to me. And then I said, that's an awesome car. We're rolling around in a beat-up Honda Civic. And I told him the story about how our windshield got cracked because someone had actually shot it back when we were at home before we started the tour. It was a really weird situation. Story for another day. Mm-hmm. But then he says to me, let's go look at your car. I want to see this. And his other buddy kind of perked up, and they were getting really intense talking to us, and we were honestly freaked out. Like, these guys were freaking us out. It might have been fine. They're scaring the crap out of us. I look over, you're doing magic tricks for this guy who we later find out was involved in some business that maybe is, you know, a little bit intense. If you're listening, you're an amazing guy. We liked you a lot, but we were pretty scared in that moment because we had no idea what was going on. But we got really, honestly, pretty intimidated. We ended up, they were gonna come, you know, see what was going on with our car, and we were like, I don't want to go in the parking lot with these guys. And then our food came.
Conveniently perfect timing.
Perfect timing. Food came. You were doing magic. He did not look very amused.
After he asked me to show him magic, he's like, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I'm a magician. And he told me about what he did, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's fine. He's like, whatever. And then, yeah, luckily our food came, and I think they ended up going out to smoke, and we're like, we should probably get out of here.
Yeah, we're like, we gotta go. This is not okay. Like, there's a 10% chance these guys are gonna beat us up and take all of our stuff. And so we grabbed our food, got some boxes, paid real quick, got out of there. And it was hilarious because we were messaging the person we were gonna stay with that night. Mm-hmm. And we're like, yeah, we just got intimidated at the bar. And she's like, that's impossible. There's no violent crime in Vermont. There's nobody like that in Vermont. She just couldn't believe it. And we're like, yeah, we didn't expect it either. But we ended up parking in
Burlington, like on the square.
Yeah, on the square in Burlington, and just eating our food. It was actually pretty good. And then we rolled in to the first person that we stayed with, Lisa. Shout out to Lisa. Thank you so much.
Lisa, you're awesome.
You're awesome. Amazing woman, a realtor, someone who's lived an incredible life. She does photography. She really loves local music, and so she'll shoot photography. And I think she's working on getting to doing some video for local artists. Mm-hmm. And she took us into this beautiful home that she's built. She didn't build it, but she's got, and they're amazing dogs.
Sadie and her cat.
Yeah. Starts with a B, I think. Mm. Yeah, I don't know.
No.
I don't remember. It's been a little bit. But yeah, it was an amazing time. Mm-hmm. Brought us in. And that night, did you go out to the causeway that night?
That night,
I think you did.
yeah, because she had a paddle board, and she wanted to show us where it was at. So we had full reign to use it and go out on the lake. But she took me out there, and then she took me out to the causeway, which is like this strip of land that connects, I guess. It mostly connects like one landmass to another, but it's like a bike path length, like the width of a bike path. And there's actually like a little ferry where if you ride your bike down the causeway, there's a ferry that you can put your bike on, and they'll transport your bike to like across like I guess where bigger boats will go through. And the stars that night were absolutely crazy. I ended up going out like back out after we got back and going out and shooting some star photography that night, which the best star photos I've ever gotten. Most clear night that I've had. I tried to do it once on one of our past road trips when we were in Flagstaff, but any other time I've tried to do it, there's always been too much light pollution, but it was so dark out, and the moon was just like gone. I don't know, it must have been like a new moon or it was behind a mountain or something, but just some absolutely beautiful photos. I loved going out and taking that.
Wow. Yeah, the stars were absolutely beautiful in Vermont. If you've never been to Vermont, the scenery is absolutely incredible. I mean, most of Vermont is kind of relaxed farm towns, and a lot of hikers, a lot of people who like to grow their own food, and so there's not a lot of light pollution. There's not a lot of city life, really. Where we were at in Burlington, there's some, but still, I mean, nothing compared to the places we've been. And I think the biggest thing is, when we were in Burlington, it's a weird place, man. It was like...
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
They had all these coffee shops, and they were thriving. But half the coffee shops, they don't even, like, make their coffee with, like, pour-overs. If you're familiar, we're coffee people. Mm-hmm. So we like a pour-over or a French press or some way that you manually brew the coffee to make a perfect cup of coffee. And all these coffee shops, they're like the one had a pour over as
their logo.
Yeah, it was like their logo. And then we walk in, we're like, do you do pour overs? Like, no. And then we're like, why? And they're like, well, our coffee's really good, drip, and not sure it'd be better pour over. I mean, we got into it.
The one barista, you were almost, not like arguing, I'd say like she's like, you had to like almost explain to her, and it's like, she's like, I don't understand why you would do that. And it's like
It was wild.
yeah.
But a couple highlights, and then I really want to touch on our conversation with Lisa. Because we actually come back to see Lisa again in our time in Vermont. We'll get to that towards the end. But one thing I want to highlight is that while we were there, Lisa has like a ton of cars. And one of the cars that she has is a 2017 convertible BMW. And she was like, go ahead and take this today. And gave the car. I ended up driving it first. And she gave me this car to drive into downtown Burlington, where we went and hung out on this awesome road where there's all these shops and people, and we met people. And
Church Street.
Yeah, Church Street. And if you're following on our social media, you'll see stories on there from people we met on Church Street. But she gives us this BMW. I'm like driving with the top down in this BMW, and I'm sitting here thinking two things at once. One, this is incredible. I've never done that before. This is absolutely amazing. Someone just handed me this car to drive. But then at the same time, I was like, do not hit anything. I was like, do not wreck this car. If you wreck this car, man, your life's over. I was like, trip's over. I don't know what I'm gonna do. So that was pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. You ended up driving it some too, didn't you?
I did, yeah. Mostly in town. One of those cars that it's hard to stick to the 35 mile an hour speed limit that was the entire drive. And I was like, oh man, I can understand why she has the car, 100%. I think she has like 2 or 3 BMWs. I know of at least 2.
I think she has 2 BMWs and 1 or 2 Jaguars.
Yeah. Jaguar's the other one she has.
Wow.
Man, as a realtor, like, I guess it's the kind of life you live at that point.
She figured it out. I'll tell you, the first day with her, we spent a lot of time working. We were catching up on a lot of stuff behind the scenes on the tour, putting a lot of different things together, including my academic study that I'm doing as part of the tour. And what was amazing, though, is we spent a night where we just really sat and talked with her. And we shared stories. And we won't go into the details of everything that was shared. It's pretty sacred, honestly, some of the stuff that we talked about. But what was really cool is she ended up telling us something that she'd never told anybody ever in her life. You know, she's in her 50s, right? And she had this experience, and she'd never told anybody about it. But she said she felt so comfortable with us that she was able to finally get that off her chest. And it wasn't that big of a deal.
No. I mean,
to us?
To us, I mean, to her, obviously, it was. Yeah. I mean, she didn't want to, she hadn't shared that with anybody, but we were like, oh, that's okay. That's okay that happened. It's fine.
Yeah. And I think that's a huge piece of, for me, what this tour is about. We're meeting people, and we're trying to really get to know them. And I don't think there's any bigger compliment to the connection that we formed than when someone's able to express something that they hadn't felt comfortable expressing before. I think that's really powerful. And she'll be a forever friend. She was super awesome. A lot of time in Burlington was spent working and meeting some people. We did go to the original, well, it's not the original, but it's the main Ben & Jerry's location. If you like ice cream, we went to that shop.
The original is actually like a parking lot now with like a little plaque.
Yeah.
Because they had to get the building had to get torn down.
Yeah. But we did get to at least experience some of Ben & Jerry's, the home of Ben & Jerry's. That was really cool. And yeah, it was a good time overall. There was one coffee shop I found that was absolutely amazing. And so I got to enjoy that.
At the end, right?
Yeah, I found that at the end. But it was good overall. It was a good time. Anything else you want to touch on before we move on to the next?
Did we go to the arcade the first? Is that was the second? Okay, we'll talk about that in a little bit then. No, I don't think there was anything else really.
Awesome. Yeah. You took a ton of awesome pictures, which was really, really cool. And yeah, we'll come back. We actually circle back that way.
About pictures, this was back for our drive into Vermont, the bridge. Yeah, we were driving in, and I don't know, probably like 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening time. If photography, like it's like right around golden hour, and I was looking over at this beautiful like sunset that was happening, and right over some mountains, and I was like, hey, Mark, I might pull over and like stop and take a photo or something like that. And you're like, okay, that's fine. No sooner did we drive like 2 minutes down the road, and we come across this giant bridge with this lake, and luckily there was a visitor center, so it was like, this is the time right now. And we pulled in. I ended up like running up on the bridge, taking a bunch of photos, and then seeing this little boat coming across the lake, getting ready to like get picked up. So I hopped off the edge of the, not like fell off the bridge, but like hopped off the bridge, ran down this super steep hill, and then caught a couple photos of the boat as it was coming in, like silhouetted in the sun. That was really, really an awesome.
Do you have that on your photography account?
I do.
We should post somewhere on this page that picture, because
yeah, we can pop it up.
Yeah, that picture. Yeah, pop it up on this video. That picture is amazing, and it was so cool because I actually watched this happen. I watched him go down, get on these little rocks from up on the bridge, and I just see him, he's scurrying down there, climbing up this little rock, and then this boat just sails in out of nowhere, almost like magic, and I just watch him taking the pictures. And that was really cool to watch, because it was like you said, you thought, I really would like to get a picture, and then boom, perfect opportunity. While you were doing that, I actually talked to some people up on the bridge. We just talked about how beautiful it was. They were talking about you. They're like, what's he doing? Is he like professional? Did they hire him to like take pictures of them on their boat? No, you just saw him. He was running down. So that was pretty cool. Also, there were like these crazy spiders all over the bridge, and that was insane because I turned around and I just saw these really big spiders with webs everywhere, and I promptly removed myself from the bridge. I was not feeling it. But yeah, no, that was awesome. Okay. So we come in, we almost die at the beginning at our dinner. Then we spend this amazing time with Lisa. Thank you so much, Lisa. It was an amazing time with you. You gave us a great introduction to Vermont, saw some amazing views. And then we made for the Capitol to stay with our friends Kevin and Mike. And the Capitol is Montpelier.
Montpelier, yep.
Which I was calling Montpelier.
Or Montpelier, and it's not that.
Or Montpelier, or Pelier, I don't know. But Montpelier, it is a really beautiful little town, little capital town with a nice state house. And we roll into there, and we just, oh my gosh, we enter the coolest home ever. Kevin and Mike's house was like the coolest place I think I've seen on this entire trip.
Yeah, definitely one of the, not to use the word cute, but the cutest home that I have seen so far at this point. I know like you walk in and like this room is like, I think the first room was like a foresty green with like, I forget what color the shutter, but like every room was like a vibrant color with a different vibrant color of like trim. And they told us the story about when they bought the house, when they were buying the house, and they walked through the house with somebody, and they're like, "Oh man, you're gonna do some painting in here," and they're like, "No, I don't think so. We like it," and I thought it was great.
It was great. They travel the whole world. Like they've done tons of trips all over the world, and they have on the wall in their living room cutouts of each continent. And each continent, they were colored, right?
Yeah, it was color coded by whether one of them visited the country, the other one visited the country, one of them lived in the country, the other one lived in the country. They lived or visited them together, and it was really a cool way to. I mean, I like these maps that people have. Like some people have like a globe with like a scratch off globe. They make these things where like you scratch off the country as soon as you've gone to it. But just to see like these maps like hanging on the wall, I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. And the color coding system was very elaborate. They put a ton of work into like putting this together. It was beautiful. Kevin's a high school teacher, language teacher, and he teaches, I think, French and some Spanish.
Yes, I think that was it.
Yeah, and then Mike is a nurse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, they were super hospitable. They had a guest room for us to stay in. I ended up staying in the room. You ended up staying on the couch that night, which was smart 'cause it was super hot, and the couch was a better place. But then they had like books on their stairways, and they had stacks of books that all had something in common, and it was a game to figure out what does this stack of books have in common, this stack of books.
Did you ever figure any out?
I figured none of them out.
I got 2.
You got 2.
I got 2 of them.
What was one of them?
If I remember, I got the top two.
Spoiler alert, if you're staying with Kevin and Mike, do not listen
Skip
to
this
next 30 seconds.
Yeah, skip this next part right here. So the first one, and I actually have pictures of the books somewhere, but the first one was colors. So all the books had to do with a color.
Gotcha.
And then the next one was, and these were confirmed with Kevin. Kevin confirmed that I had these right. And I forget which one was actually correct on this, but it was either time or numbers.
Okay.
So both of those, it was one of those two. I forget which one he said was actually correct.
Okay.
But yeah, I got 2 of them, and then the other ones were like, I don't know, I haven't figured it out yet.
They were out there. Well, that was awesome. Well, we get in at night, we have an awesome night, we get to know them, and the next day is really our day to experience the Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta tell you, I loved this Capitol town. It's a small town. There is, like for good reference, there's no McDonald's here.
Mm-hmm.
There's no corporate franchises at all in this town. They won't have it. It's all local businesses, and they're all doing well.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, if you ever want to experience a small town where everything's local, everything is kind of unique, and they're doing well, like really well, this is a great place to experience, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And we went in, we hit a coffee shop, we did some work there, and then we did a statehouse tour.
Statehouse. Do you remember our host's, our tour guide's name?
I do not remember her name, but I'm going to go find her. I have a guess. I believe it started with a J.
I thought it started with an M, but I'm not.
What do you think it is?
I don't know.
I think it's like Jane or something like that. I can't. Oh, Molly, you had it. It's Molly.
Okay,
That's right.
okay.
So if you go to our Instagram or our Facebook, you can see a story feature we did of Molly. And oh my gosh, she was such an amazing tour guide.
Yeah, she knew so much about it. And I think the tour was supposed to be like a half an hour, and we spent like an hour and a half on this tour. Ended up like making it to like they had closed down like 20 or 30 minutes, and we were still on the tour, and the security guard ended up like kicking us out. She's like, it's like, yeah, we gotta. I know you guys are enjoying it, but we gotta close because I had a soccer game to get to or something.
Yeah.
She was like the coach to a game or something like that.
Yeah,
And
that's exactly it. It was amazing. And she was talking to us about a really important question. It's a question we're trying to answer on this tour, which is, how is it that people come to understand and live with people who think differently than them? And it's a simple question. It's a question we've all wondered at some point, most likely. But it's a really tough question to answer. And Molly had a lot of insight where she was talking to us about her life. She's retired. A lot of times people in state houses or Capitol buildings, they're retired and they give tours as a kind of retirement experience so they can do something fun with their lives. And we were just talking about that, like how difficult it is to be able to really understand why someone else thinks differently than you do. To actually be able to put yourself in their shoes and think about, well, why do they have this mentality that they have right now? And so that was really inspiring to talk with her. She was so lively and so excited about life. And yeah, that was a good tour.
Mm-hmm.
Any highlights from that tour you want to bring up?
From the tour, some really cool things from the tour, just different things that I remember learning. I believe that's the longest standing state house in the United States at this point right now.
I think that's New Hampshire.
I think it's New Hampshire.
Yeah, I think that this state house had actually burned down 2 times.
Okay, yeah,
Their,
you're right.
Their state house had burned down twice.
And I remember the stairway was like, the stairs that took you to like the second or third level was cast iron. these giant cast iron steps that were all, I guess, cast in one piece, which I couldn't imagine, one, how you would cast something that big, two, how you would move it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they ended up making it out of a lot of stuff out of cast iron because they didn't want it to burn down again. You're right.
That's exactly right. They tried to fireproof this statehouse. But what was really cool about the statehouse is they actually had fossils built into the floor.
Yeah.
So if you look at the tiles on the floor, and there were fossils that were built into those tiles. And so that was really cool. It was a good time. We walked out of the tour, and we found ourselves at an event that was happening on the steps of that building for, it was like a...
Overdose awareness, I think.
Yeah, overdose awareness and harm reduction. Yeah, for people who are struggling with mostly, you know, fentanyl use, heroin use, and things like that. We got free Ben and Jerry's at the event. Thank you,
Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah, thanks, Ben and Jerry's. And then we stuck around and we talked to some people, got to meet some parents of children who had overdosed. And I'll tell you what, this rally was really cool because they had a lot of speakers, and they were very serious about taking care of people who are struggling. If they were struggling with addiction, or if they had fallen into a pattern of behavior like that, making sure that they are not stigmatized as bad people, and that there are options for them to try to get better and try to live a quality life. Go ahead.
Well, so we talked to one of the main speakers along with his wife and got to hear his story on how he thankfully had overcome an addiction, and to see his wife, who I remember was his wife with him the whole time, or was that a second marriage of theirs?
I'm not sure.
I don't remember. But she was super sweet. We talked to her for probably like 20 minutes, half an hour at one point in time.
Yeah, and honestly, one thing that I think is really powerful is we talked to them, and there's a couple different perspectives that we've heard about on how to show up to help people with addiction. Some believe that you should build places where they can use those drugs safely, and some believe you shouldn't have that at all. And him and his wife actually disagreed on how to do it. And that was really powerful hearing that, because we got both their perspectives. But then at the end, the whole point was that regardless of our perspectives, this is a problem we're going to come together to solve, and we're going to find a solution. And so I was really impacted powerfully by that. I also met a mother who had lost her child that day, and that really hit me. I was like, holy crap. Because if you guys don't know, for me, I lost both my parents, and there was a lot of drug use and alcohol abuse in my family. And so it really hit home for me to see that happening, because I know a lot of people who've been in that situation. And so it was a really substantive day. I mean, it was a really powerful day. We really got to connect with amazing people. So then after the awareness event, we went to trivia.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Wow. When we're staying with these people through couch surfing, it is literally like we just embed ourselves in their everyday life. Like whatever they would normally be doing on I think this was a Thursday night, we just get to do it with them, experience their exact life as they would be living it with them. It's amazing. And this was trivia night.
Yeah, I loved it. It was probably one of my favorite, if not potentially my favorite night of the tour so far. I described it afterwards as, I think, the first night where I kind of felt like I was home, sounding weird, because it felt like we were just in this group with this group of friends, that we had just, it almost felt like when we walked in that we were just another person from town that was invited to come that night. And it was really, really great. We got introduced to a whole bunch of people that night. I think it was like 6 or something people, new people that we met. It was Emma, there was...
Don't forget everybody's names.
I'm gonna forget everybody's names. I'm struggling trying to remember names.
We got Kevin and Mike.
Kevin
Emma,
and Mike, Emma.
And then I don't know.
I was gonna say, I want to say it was Jake. I think there was a Jake there. No,
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't remember. I remember seeing.
I got the M for Molly. We'll count that.
Don't feel bad. Like you might be like, guys, how are you forgetting the people you meet? We meet on average, 5 to 10 new people a day.
Yeah.
And it's hard to keep up. It's a lot of new people all the time. So that's why. No fault there.
Yeah. Emma was easy to remember because her name was half of our answers on trivia.
Yeah, and I'll talk about that. That's something. You started doing magic tricks for everybody.
Yep, between each round of trivia, which, by the way, if you run a trivia, way better. Instead of having a buzzer and having people buzz in, have people write down their answers and submit their answers. Works so much better.
So much better. That trivia was awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. And so, yeah, you did a bunch of magic
did
tricks.
a bunch of magic, bouncing back and forth between a round of trivia, a couple tricks, round of trivia, a couple tricks. That was a lot of fun. Even though at one point in time a trick was done to me, I had a box of cards given to somebody, and it was supposed to be more important later, and then that box of cards disappeared and ended up somewhere else in somebody else's pocket, and then the selected card from one of the tricks that I did was like switched places on me, and I was like, where'd it go? It was really confusing at first. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun. Good banter.
For those of you who don't know, I mean, for a magician, he has to coordinate a bunch of people doing different things to make the tricks be amazing. So sometimes he'll give cards to certain people and it'll come up later, or like you've given like an orange to somebody or a paper ball or something. And if they do something weird with it and he doesn't know, all of a sudden when he comes back and it's time to go back to that trick or whatever, he's like, where'd the things go? But that, I want to let you know, I really appreciate that about you, is that part of your craft is learning how to navigate those situations and still make it fun and make something magical happen, even when it gets thrown off, which is pretty cool to watch.
Yeah,
because I see it happen all the time.
A lot of thinking on your feet has to happen in performance. So
it was good. I ended up in a very serious conversation with an amazing person. If you're listening to this, Emma, thank you. I mean, I have gotten so much from our conversation. And this person, she had gone through a lot. And she had lost someone really important to her. And I resonated with that as well. And she shared with me the journey of coping with that loss and some of the mistakes she made in coping with that, and how she was able to rise above that and find community and find peace again in her life. And I was sitting here having this conversation with her, and I just got pulled in, and I was literally crying. Like, I'm watching her tell the story, I'm experiencing what her life was like during this time and where she's at now, and I'm just crying listening to this. It was beautiful. We hugged each other at the end. It was like a really wholesome moment. And that's something I want to speak to about this tour too, is that if you really want to have a powerful, deep relationship with somebody or connection or experience, there's a level of vulnerability to it. And the best conversations that I've had have come from me talking about a vulnerable time in my life. And then someone else starts talking about theirs. And when you share those levels of real deep emotional experience, I mean, I feel like I'm growing a lot from these conversations. So, shout out to you, Emma. That was amazing. Kevin, Mike, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. That was a great time. That was a really great time. Anything else about trivia you want to throw out?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's anything else about that. Then from there, we were supposed to go further upstate. Downstate? Paulette. And we were supposed to stay with somebody. Unfortunately, they ended up getting COVID, and we had to call in a real big favor.
Had to call in a favor. Had to head back to Colchester, just outside Burlington, to our good friend Lisa. She told us if anything happens or if we needed an extra place to stay, we could stay with her anytime. And so we thought, you know what? She seemed really sincere in that offer. Let's reach out and head on back there. And so we went back to Colchester to stay with Lisa. That night we pulled in, she wasn't going to be home till late, so we went to a barcade. I still couldn't drink. If you watch some of the previous episodes, I was on antibiotics, and so I couldn't have these amazing heady toppers. If you're in Vermont, the beer of Vermont, it's an IPA, right? It's called Heady Toppers.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. I took a sip on my antibiotics, don't tell, but nothing more. And then we played some pinball and
Played a
some
lot
arcade.
of pinball, some Pac-Man, and I played Space Invaders. Big Space Invaders fan.
Right on.
A video game. If I'm playing an arcade game.
Right on. And I'll tell you, on this trip, having times where we can just like spend an hour playing a little game, or like we've done mini golf, we've done like a barcade, you know, just an hour or two to just kind of relax. You need that.
Mm-hmm.
You need some time to just let go when you're traveling so much like this. And so that was fun.
Mm-hmm.
We rolled back into Lisa's house, and I think the next day worked a little bit in the day, and then we went for a ride in the BMW, top down. You were in a torture device. I had no idea he was in a torture device.
Sitting in the back seat of this BMW, and I think I had like I was like, oh, I'll take my hat off, see what happens. And my hair was going wild. It's like not happening. Put the hat on, and like this hat's gonna fly off. So I was like this, and like cinched up, like with my hat and hoodie on, like holding this dog, so the dog didn't jump out of the car. Sadie, awesome travel companion.
Yeah, it was great, but it was intense. I was loving it because I was in the front seat, and then turns out in the front seat of a convertible, the windshield blocks a lot of the wind.
Does its job as blocking the wind as a windshield.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like great. And so I was loving it. I was just excited the whole time. And I look back, he's got like his hood up and stuff, and I didn't realize that he was back here getting attacked by, you know, wind and this craziness. And so we go through that. That was the day we got maple creamies.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you haven't had a maple creamy, Vermont's famous for maple syrup. And so it's ice cream that's made with maple, and it was delicious.
It's pretty much ice cream. Yeah, never mind. I was gonna say it's different than ice cream. I guess it's like a different fat content, but but it was still really, really good.
It's like worse for you than ice cream, but it's really good. And we grabbed those. We went and sat on a bench and talked to this man, this random guy who had a dog there, and that was really important. I think you were shooting some photos.
I went and tried to take pictures and videos of dogs running and jumping in the water and having the time of their lives. It was great.
That's amazing. I had a deep political conversation. And if you've never been to Vermont, Vermont is at least the parts we were in, people are very adamant about creating a safe place for all different types of people to be able to live their life. They are very adamant about diversity and making sure that the environment is really like safe for everybody. And at the same time, the populations of the places we were at were not diverse at all. And so there's this tension. And we got to talk about it with this guy, because it was, and I'm, you know, be sensitive to the language I have here, because I don't even know how to make sense of this. But we're in this area where people have very strong values, but I would say the best way to say it is they didn't have the opportunity to see those values shine. So in a place where they value diversity exceptionally, there's not much diversity. And so there's some, but not much, and people are very aware of that. And if we asked a couple people about it, and they're like, you're right. And they're like, it's not. And so it's this place where I always wonder, like, if more people from different types of populations moved there, what would their experience be like? Because the values seem very conducive to it. I don't know. This guy felt differently, and he promptly told me all about it. He talked to me a lot about how in Vermont there's a lot of people who are in the rural side or the countryside who think differently than people in the cities, and this is, you know, something we'll probably see in a lot of places. But he really felt like he was actually kind of frustrated with a lot of people moving into Vermont from different states when COVID hit, and changing the political landscape, and feeling like they were coming in and, you know, kind of taking over this area that really mattered, you know, to this guy for a long time. And those are important conversations too. That's part of discovering America, is that there's a political part to it. And so we got to learn about that. And really intense guy about it, but he was passionate about what he believed. We were only there for like 25 minutes, but it was intense. And then we went and saw a waterfall.
Yep. Driving how fast?
We were driving about 97 mile per hour that's what we peaked out at, in this convertible BMW while he was in the torture seat. I was enjoying it, kind of. I was scared. I'm not a guy who likes to drive fast. I mean, I like it, but I also am the kind of guy who simulates all the bad things that can happen. And so
It's a little different when you're driving and when you are just riding with somebody who you've ridden with once or twice.
yeah, it was fast. We were going fast. And it was, I'll be honest, it was very fun, but it was also at the same time super scary.
BMW takes curves going pretty quick too.
BMW handles well.
Just good handling on that car.
Sure does. I was sitting here in the front seat. I'm like, don't die, don't die, don't die, don't die. I was
Like going
this
70 around
Yeah.
curves.
Yeah,
I'm like,
this is fun, don't die. This is fun, don't die. But then we went to a beautiful waterfall, Glen Falls. It was incredible. Really loved it. You took some amazing pictures there.
yep. Yeah, enjoyed
Got
that.
to jump down into the waterfall a little bit, hop on some rocks, see that. And then I think the biggest amazing part of that
The
night,
drive back.
the drive back, we're just cruising through the countryside in Vermont with the top down, and we just kept our heads just looking to the sky because it was so beautiful. Every inch of the sky was covered in stars. It was truly amazing.
It's a beautiful universe that we live in, and well, galaxy at that point, but universe still the same. But man, one thing I've been doing, I think I talked about this in one of the previous ones, I've been learning constellations as we're going through, and it's like being able to sit here and just be like, oh, well, there's that one. There's Cassiopeia. There's that's the full Ursa Major part of the Big Dipper. There's like Draco, and like learning all of these different constellations it's so fascinating and cool because they're things that people have been looking up at for, the entire human history at this point.
That's so it's a shared experience that we can have with people who aren't even here now. I love that. That was a good night. Had fun. We ate some good pizza that night.
Oh yeah.
Had a good time. And we're gonna have to wrap this podcast up pretty quickly because it's a place that we're in. We're gonna have to get out of here.
Yeah, they're gonna be closing up, but
Yep. So I think we should talk about the last day.
okay.
Last day was intense. We climbed a mountain-ish. We drove up part of it, climbed the rest of it.
Climbed across a mountain, basically.
Climbed across the mountain. Mount Mansfield, absolutely beautiful.
Amazing views. Mountains in Vermont are different than mountains in most of the East because, at least Mount Mansfield was, because once you get up so high, there's like no trees anymore. It's all rocks, and there might be a couple little sections where you'll get trees, but you can pretty much see all around you all the time. And it's an interesting. What was your experience like on the mountain?
I didn't want to climb the mountain. I have really weak ankles and knees from a lot of injuries, and so if I'm going to climb a mountain, I'm not a big hiker. I'd like to be one by the end of this trip, but if I'm going to climb a mountain, I definitely need some boots. I definitely need to be prepared just to make sure I got support. And I was sold that this mountain was going to be pretty much flat and easy, and you kind of walk across, and there's a couple spots that are a little difficult. That was not the case. This was pretty advanced in terms of walking on a lot of jagged types of rocks.
Not too big elevation change, but the ground was not flat.
Yeah, the ground's not flat. You're walking on a bunch of different rocks. So I just didn't trust my ankles to make it. I didn't really want to do the mountain at this time. I like the idea of climbing a mountain. It's something I love to set up to do. But on that particular day, kind of really didn't plan on doing it. Wasn't really looking forward to doing it because I was focused on some other things that day. That's okay, you have that. When you're traveling all the time and you got work to do behind the scenes as well, sometimes you need work days. I really needed a work day, but our friend really wanted us to see his view, and I can understand why. It was really beautiful. So we drove up to the mountain. We got some apple cider donuts.
Really good.
So good. We got there. We had a little bit of a tension getting started, figuring out, if this is something we were going to do the whole thing. And then we took off. We made the decision to do it. Got to the top. Had an amazing time at the top.
Top
beautiful.
of Vermont.
Yeah,
Quite
highest
literally.
Point. Highest point.
And
We got there.
A little hazy, but you could just see I couldn't imagine so many miles. It was just rolling hills in any direction you looked. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it was absolutely beautiful. And I'm glad I climbed to the top of there. But on the way back, my ankle gave out within the first 5 minutes. It just snapped down. And it didn't injure because I've injured my ankles so much that they're loose. So if they do that, I'll just fall. But then a little bit further down, gave out on me again. I fell down a little bit of a hill. Ended up either breaking or injuring my finger. And so I've had a splint for a while now. And it was just pretty intense to walk back. Our friend who's climbing with us, she had thrown her back out beforehand. So I'll give you something there. There's some serious strength. Mm-hmm. She went across this whole mountain and back, probably 3 hours of climbing mountain with the thrown out back.
Yeah.
I don't know how she did it. It was absolutely insane. She got back and couldn't walk. And so I really hope you're healing up.
I'm sitting here, we're going on the way down this mountain, and her back's messed up. Mark, I think, rolls his ankle, potentially breaks his finger, and I'm like, we're losing light. It's going to be dark by the time we get down this mountain. I did not want to climb down a pretty intense, at least terrain in the dark. It was not something I was interested in doing.
Without headlamps.
Without headlamps. We had flashlights, but man, we got through. I think we turned the flashlights on the last 5 minutes of the walk, but luckily it was pretty boardwalk flat by that point.
Yep, and we got through it. It was a good time. We got back. I was thankful. First time I've ever summited a mountain. You too, right?
Yep, same first time.
Beautiful views. I definitely want to do some more mountains. Going to be doing more of that in the future. And it wasn't that bad. We got my fingers splinted up. It's healing. Hopefully, a couple podcasts from now, it'll be good to go. And we ended up meeting this amazing person at the end. Mm-hmm. Met this wonderful bartender at Applebee's, of all places, where we went to get some dinner on our last night. And we had this amazing conversation. We featured her as a story as well, so definitely check her out on our social media. Give her some love. And the person with her is Michael, right?
Mm-hmm. Michael.
He was an amazing person who visited that Applebee's regularly, and he always carried a
Mickey. It was a Mickey.
Snoopy.
A Snoopy, yeah.
A Snoopy doll with him. Just a really sweet guy, older guy, and he was close to the bartender. Their family had him come over for Christmas, and they're real close. We featured a story on him, and they just spread a lot of joy. They're really beautiful people. And at a time where I was sitting here, I'm like, my finger's probably broken. I didn't want to climb that mountain. I'm glad I did, but it was I was just stressed.
Yep.
And it just brought peace, a lot of peace. That was good. Anything else you want to add?
Nope, I don't think so. No, it was just a wonderful, wholesome way to end that kind of a hectic day. Good day. Glad we made it up. Glad we made it down. Glad it wasn't worse.
Yeah, same. It was awesome. I totally do Vermont again. There's a lot to learn there. It's a beautiful place. It's full of all kinds of interesting people. And guys, if you like this podcast, let us know. Mm-hmm. Engage us on social media. We'll be putting some polls out, but just come on there and direct message us. It's the American Discovery Tour on Facebook and Instagram. You'll see our logo. It's a map of the U.S. with a question mark. Come on there, just direct message us. Say, I really like the podcast. This is what I liked. I'd really like you to do this type of podcast content while you're out there. We've got some ideas of what we could do. Maybe do some interviews with people we're meeting and share that with you. Let us know what you're looking for and follow us. If you're watching this on Spotify or listening on Spotify or listening on all these other podcast platforms as they come out, please give us a rating and a review. That helps us get this out there. And it also helps us start to figure out how we can do more, how we can bring more people into this experience. Again, our goal is to help people learn about people, get curious about different types of people, learn how to incorporate their stories into our own experience. We can learn from each other. really just to become better people in the process.
Yep.
So I guess I'll ask a real quick question. What is it? Who is Donovan?
Oh boy. So I forgot about this question. Let's say Donovan is, I'm gonna use this word, Donovan is curious now just to see where we're going. This has been a wild ride so far, and now that we're a month in, 4 states in, it's gotten past that point, and I might have said this last time, but it's gotten past that point where it's like, yeah, I think this is really possible. We, with what's gone on the last week, 2 weeks, but when we're back out here doing this, it's like, I think this is possible. I think we can do it. I think it's gonna be good. I think it'll be great.
That's awesome.
Who's Mark?
Mark is dramatic pause, apparently. Mark is frustrated. We're having all these amazing interactions with people, and they're very different types of people with different beliefs from different backgrounds. And Mark just wants to figure out how we achieve peace with each other. Mark is a bridge. Mark is someone who is dedicated to helping people who struggle to see the value in each other, find value in each other, and find relationship. That's like all I think about while I'm on this trip, is how do we do that? And so that's what I've got right now for me. That's what's coming up. Awesome. Well, that's our cue. Thank you for tuning into our episode. If you're watching on video, it's great to see you. Happy to see you. You can tell we're alive. We're doing well, barely injured. And if you're listening, just thanks for listening. Mm-hmm. We'll be back again soon with the next episode. And thank you again very much.
Bye.